Well, to the other big Ottawa story now. More questions today about the reports of harassing and misleading calls made during last spring's federal election. There are now allegations that these calls were received in at least 40 ridings, many of them in vote-rich Ontario. And a handful of those races were close calls, where the outcome was decided by fewer than 1,000 votes. Our senior correspondent, Terry Milewski, is on this story for us. Terry.
Well, Peter, this is a dangerous moment for the Conservatives because it touches the very legitimacy of their election victory. And every day, fresh details are coming in from all over the country on bogus calls sending voters astray.
Well, I think what's happened here, Terry, is that there's a plan here to affect the outcomes in ridings across Canada.
Just one example is the Ontario riding of London West, where Liberal Doug Ferguson was defeated. He says his supporters got calls sending them to the wrong polling station, and they recorded one of them.
And you'd be going to go to the Emily Carr Public School.
That was false, the wrong side of town. And Ferguson says Liberals also got harassing calls claiming to be from his campaign.
When you're messing with an election itself, that is the fundamental basis of our democracy. If you're trying to mess with that goes beyond the pale.
Another new example is in Edmonton Centre.
From what I understand, there were real people and robocalls, so there was a concerted effort in confusing the voters.
Yet another case is Thunder Bay. It's emerged that a call centre in this mall followed a Conservative Party script in misdirecting voters. The former manager of that centre does not admit to the misdirecting part, but he does admit to calls getting aggressive.
A lot of people just don't want to tell people who they're voting over the phone, so things like that. But there were times where I could tell you that maybe the agent wasn't exactly very polite.
But in Parliament, mere rudeness was not the issue.
Fixing elections means that by-election could be called. People could end up in jail. The Prime Minister must be tough on crime.
The Prime Minister usually skips question period on Mondays, but he showed up today to plead innocent.
Calls and questions are calls the Conservative Party of Canada placed to its own supporters, Mr. Speaker.
Harper claimed that his party only called its own troops, and he dared the opposition to prove otherwise.
If they have any information, I challenge them to produce that information, give it to Elections Canada.
But the opposition was in full cry.
Impersonating an elections official to interfere with the right of a Canadian to cast their ballot is not free speech, it's a criminal offence.
The Conservatives insisted they want a full investigation.
I say to that member, if he has any evidence, if he has any information at all, provide that information to Elections Canada. Let's allow them to conduct an investigation into this matter.
They're the ones who have to come forward with the information. When is the Prime Minister of Canada going to take some degree of personal responsibility for what is taking place in the country?
Harper's response was, let's see the evidence.
So if the Liberal Party has such information, let them come forward, provide it, give it to Elections Canada.
Their message is if you can catch us, then catch us. Otherwise, we're going on business as usual.
Behind the scenes, though, the Conservatives do admit they have a real problem. While they say that the party's top brass is not to blame, they also say that they don't really know who's to blame. So they can't be sure how high up that blame may go as the daily drip, drip of evidence spreads. Peter.
All right, Terry. Thanks very much. Terry Milewski in Ottawa.